Good morning. Paul, the writer of this letter, was an ambassador for God. He brought encouragement and challenge to the early church. He wrote to the Colossians because they'd taken their eyes off Jesus. If we, the church here in Peasdown, pray for each other like Paul did, what might the impact be? Paul asked God to give the church knowledge of his will and spiritual wisdom and understanding. I used to teach Year 1 children, and we often had conflict resolution discussions. They happened after playtime. We talked about wisdom. It's great fun talking with 6-year-olds about wisdom. They thought that wisdom was doing the right thing, but we learned together that it's perhaps a little bit more than that. In another of Paul's letters, God says that his most foolish plan is wiser than the wisest human plan. So if we ask God for wisdom, then we don't have to worry about whether we're right or wrong. We just need to learn to trust Jesus. Trusting God has been linked to getting out of a boat and walking on water, so it might feel a bit scary. Paul prayed for strength to endure. Enduring is not something I'd choose to do for fun. But I know that it happens sometimes, and we do have to stick at things that we don't choose to do and we would never want to do. We can't compare our tough times. We were never meant to, but we can ask God for strength to endure. In 1997, Ofsted were due to visit our school. In those days, they gave 6 months' notice to panic and worry. I had a particularly difficult class that year, and I wasn't at all sure that things were going to go well. I hardly slept the night before they came, but when I woke up that morning, I had a song going round in my head. It was a song from the group Delirious, and it was this: every little thing's gonna be all right. Everything was all right. And I was just really encouraged by the fact that I knew that God loved me, and God really loves us, and he's really wanting the best for us. Paul finally reminds the Colossians about who they are. They're God's people. They've been rescued by him and transferred from the kingdom of darkness into the kingdom of light. I love that idea of being transferred, because Jesus has forgiven the sin that separated them from God, and the sin that separates us from God as well. I have a dear friend from my school days in Bradford, where we grew up. When we were younger, we met regularly over a meal. Her husband always started the conversation with a question. It wasn't, what are we having for dinner, or how are you getting on? It was this: what book are you reading and why? I used to squirm when that question was asked, because I usually wasn't reading any books. I was just surviving, a young mum with three young children, and it felt like a very intrusive question. But you know what? It also felt like they really cared about me. They cared about us. They wanted to journey with us. They wanted to know what was going on inside our lives as well as on the outside. We have some other friends who are our age. They have 2 young grandchildren. The parents of these grandchildren ask them, their children, a question every morning when they come down. They don't ask what they'd like for breakfast, and they don't ask how they slept. They ask this question: how's your heart today? Well, there's an intrusive question. So when we spend time together, could we encourage greater intimacy in our relationship with God and with each other by reminding ourselves of who we are and what God has done for us, and then by praying specifically for God's wisdom and for strength to endure? We might feel a bit uncomfortable with the question that we're asked, and we might feel a little bit uncomfortable getting out of the boat to ask a question. Let's trust God and see where he leads us.